Wow, internet's a little slow. Internet's a little slow today, guys. What's up? Welcome to another episode of FMA Source. My name is Paulo Rubio. Today, we got a really special episode for you. We're going to be talking about sparring. We're going to be talking about Pikiti Tertia. We're going to be talking about all the parts and pieces that make sparring such an important element in your studies of the Filipino martial arts. Today, I've got two special guests. We've got two mandalas from the PTTA. We have Eian Floresca and we have Patch Caballero. So this is going to be a good one, guys. Stay tuned. Let's get the party started.
Get the fuck out of bed, bitch. Go.
You're finished. Stop.
Get up. Gotta wake up, bitch. Get up.
Oh.
Get up. Get up.
Launch the counterattack. Here they are. We got Sensei E. We got Mandala Patch. What's up, guys? Thanks for doing this today.
Thank you for having me, and great to see Mandala Patch. So awesome. I miss you guys.
Yes, sir. Mandala Patch looks like he's frozen. He's got that mean mug face on him.
I'm afraid always. So,
all right. Well, Mandala Patch might need to reconnect, but Sensei E, let's talk about sparring. Where do you stand? Let's get right into it. Should people be sparring? How should they be sparring? And what are your personal methodologies to guide people into this amazing part of FMA study?
Well, I think sparring absolutely is an incredible tool to develop your FMA, your Kali. I mean, I apologize. I'm a little bit nervous here.
No. Hey, listen. I'm back in the day. Sparring used to be different in PTK, right?
Yes.
Man, what were those days like? Like people were looking to kill each other, right? Like what the heck?
Yeah, no. I mean, everyone's trying to get to know each other. Some people at the time, the old gatherings. I mean, I remember the first gathering. We were at, I believe it was in Antipolo. And it was, I think, where they filmed that Fight Quest, that resort. And so we were all there. And, when you're there, at the time, you're meeting people for the first time. People are seeing you for the first time. And, I do admit, you get nervous. Some people look at you weird and you get a little bit kind of maybe offended, like, well, what are you looking at kind of thing. And tensions grow through the camp. And then, all of a sudden they say, okay, spar. And you might be there with the person that you might, be friends with or not be friends with. So back then, I think this was in 2010, 9, maybe, one of the first gathering camps. And you would do knife sparring, you do stick sparring, and then all the seniors would be refereeing it. So there was a thing, I guess you could say at that time, where there wasn't so much of a blueprint of
right.
Within kind of getting out there and sparring. It was you would have like, okay, let's just go and whatever happens kind of thing.
Well, some bad things happened, right? Patch, Patch? Like, can you guys tell me some stories about some of these bad things without naming any names? Bad things
Broken
did happen.
collarbone.
Yeah, there were some things that happened, but it's not that bad, right? They're still alive and everything, but some minor injuries.
Like what? Like what, guy? Like what have you seen over the years when there wasn't a blueprint for how to spar? Like what were some?
Technically, just to start it off, though, when we spar, well, for all the years that we've been done sparring, there has never been a time where someone got really seriously injured in any of the sparrings that we did, right? But
Right.
when you guys are talking about the time where there was no blueprint for sparring,
Mhm.
I think there was one camp that stood out the most where we had to bring some people to the hospital because of like fractures, something nothing major, but
Minor
there were still
fractures,
injuries, minor fractures.
emergency room trips.
I think Mandala Patch is being very kind. You know, I mean, helmets would fly off, and the hitting would still continue. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
there was blood and busted noses, and broken collarbone, and somebody would come back in an arm sling. So I mean,
And I mean, that stuff's cool. It's cool in a way, but at the same time, it's like, hey, you paid a lot of money for this flight to the Philippines,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
You had these plans, and then all of a sudden now you've got all these other expenses. You may not be able to participate in subsequent events, and it's not a very good experience at the end of the day, or there's an opportunity for your experience to be diminished, right?
Very true. I mean, the thing was, okay, for example, for us in Japan, like the Shinkali group, when I would bring the students to the gatherings in the Philippines, you have a sense of responsibility. These are our students. I don't want to take a student to the Philippines and all of a sudden, he comes back to Japan with an accident. There's still that school responsibility. But in the long time ago, we didn't think about that stuff. It's like, again, there was no blueprint. You started taking these steps where, oh man, though I might want to go and jump into the ring, and maybe I want to go and spar. Oh, I got my student here who's maybe just learning. Should I just throw him in the mix? And I remember there was, even when the girls would spar, at the time, again, we didn't have a blueprint, and they would jump in. And then one time I remember being there at the hospital, me and Tuan Kid were there in the hospital, making sure she was okay, because she jumped in sparring, and those were just examples that happened in the past. But then we learned from them, and it started to grow. It started to grow where, we knew that you wanted the students to explore that technique. You wanted them to, be able to execute that technique, but then execute it with that one tool of sparring that really does help you get that technique out. We do have what we hear on theory of, this is how it's supposed to be, or this is how it was back in the day. This is what it means. And, every student has that right to find out, okay, let me see.
It's a right. It's a right.
My teacher told me this, I could hit the hand. I could potentially lock the arm. I could maybe take the leg down. So, you're on that journey to find it. And now these days, I mean, just to mention the most recent PTTA gathering that you guys had recently, you got guys jumping there and sparring. And then, I was watching that podcast of Mandala Rob, and shout out to Mandala Rob.
Shout out.
Fantastic podcast. I mean, you had, Matas Nuguro and Jolie also teaching the Kapipunyo. Taking that, for example, the Kapipunyo, how do you apply that the Kapipunyo in sparring?
Oh, yeah.
That's a very long combination. But the first part of the Kapipunyo is doing the thrust. So can you execute that thrust?
Right. Absolutely. By the way, shout out and Jolie and Mandala Rob. Amazing individual. And you know what? You know what's crazy too? I saw Anjoli trying some new things. And I don't know whether they were curriculum based, whether they were part of another curriculum that he's choosing to integrate into Pikiti Tertia. I just love the openness of the PTTA. Mandala Patch, let me ask you a question.
Trying new things.
Exactly. But my question is to both of you, do you think that now that there's a blueprint for how to spar safely, and we have all of these intentions contained within that, wanting to try out our techniques with live resistance, do you consider it like watering down sparring?
Not at all. Completely not at all.
Talk to me about
Because
that.
you're when in sparring, like off cam we were talking about it, right? Anybody can spar, anybody can fight. Anyone who's brave enough, who doesn't mind a bit of pain and bruises can fight. You don't need to learn Kali. All you need to do is just swing sticks, a caveman strikes 1 and 2. You could win fights with that, right? But why are we studying this art, right? We're studying Col de Mama, we're studying Dako Pipunyo, like Mandala E mentioned. We're doing Seguidas, 64 attacks and everything, right? If you're going to learn all of those and just go back to being caveman when you spar, then why even bother trying to train that, right? So our goal in sparring is not to beat anyone up, no ego and everything. It's just how you apply what you learn in class, in the seminar or conferences, and apply it in actual stick fighting, right? That's the main goal.
Sensei, what do you think? You think we're dulling it down, or do you think there's a higher purpose to how the PTTA conducts its sparring?
Well, I completely agree with Mandala Pat. We're not dulling it down. I mean, for people to say that we're dulling it down or creating a structure of it, is completely the opposite of what we're doing when you do have this blueprint. Because take, for example, any other martial arts that is out there. If you looked at karate, it went, you have sparring, you have competitions. You have Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you spar, you have competitions. They all go to that next level by, pushing themselves to get there. I mean, you can easily, like Manala Patch, like this caveman thing and hit and strike and, throw a chair on a person. But, if you're learning, for example, a Sakitas, or if you're learning a Dakapi Punyo, you want to find that value of what you learned, and if you create this blueprint, say, okay, the challenge is, your thrust or the watik or this lock. It's the same as telling someone who's doing jujitsu, try to get an armbar. People are going to make it difficult for you. Spar with someone who moves differently. Different style, different footwork, maybe different size, maybe faster, maybe stronger, maybe slower. But can you execute that thrust? Can you execute that watik? Can you execute that redonda? I mean, every combination, it's not set in stone from A to B. Like, oh, this combination of 10, a fight is not going to work that way. Exactly 1 to 10, but 1 might work, 5 might work, 6 might work. You might have to shuffle all those numbers around. But if I taught you, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that's not going to be a fight. That's not going to how a fight.
That's a dance number.
Exactly. But if I teach you, 1, 2, 3, but you got the 1 off, that's an important one. It might change 1 to a Sinawali. It might change 1 to a Hobud. It might change 1 to a grapple. But you experience how to do that number 1 thrust. If I taught you a 1-2 strike, and then that 1-2 strike, I can't get my number 2 off, but I got my number 1 off, then, I experienced it. Then you know how to do it. So
there's something scary about sparring, and there's something incredibly primal about picking up a stick and trying to smash another human being with it. How do you guys teach your students to learn control so that they're actually executing techniques and not revert into such a primal state where all you're doing is just the things that, as you mentioned, Patch, you may not have needed FMA to learn. So how do you get students past this very scary thing, at least on the surface, of sparring?
Technically, when we do our sparring program in the Philippines, no, we select the people who go through that program. It's voluntary and selection. So if I know that this guy cannot control himself yet, right? So some people black out, or some people can't even control the strikes, and they just go 100% all the time. Right? It's not easy to teach that, but the student has to have that break, right? If you know that you're about to injure someone already, I want to see that you can control yourself, right? I don't want to see you like blacking out and everything, and that's where the technique comes in, like trying to apply a technique rather than just winning the fight. If the student is just there to win fights, then it becomes barbaric. It becomes caveman style, right? Like you just beat him up.
Yeah, and there's a value to that, right? There's a value to that
course.
also. I mean, you got to be able to throw down. But executing these techniques, they're important to you, and they're important to us.
Yes, they're important, one, because you studied them, so might as well try to use it or figure out how you could use it, right? And that teaches the person also to control the strikes, right? And when you try new things, you get hit also, right? So it's like a back and forth kind of thing, right? If I try to experiment on something, I will expect that I will also get hit, right? So from there, like the ego like gets off, right? Or one thing that we do also to remove that ego thing is every fight that we do, okay, every one of the sessions or most of the sessions, everybody hits everyone. Like a student hits a tuhon, a student hits a mandala hits everyone. So
what do you mean? Like you just hit them?
Yeah, you just stand there and then people hit you.
Wow.
So we call it like a pikiti massage. And so there's no ego. There's nothing like, oh, I cannot hit the tuhon because he's a tuhon.
Yo, that's great, Patch. I didn't know you did that. That's one way to do it for sure. Sensei E, how do you get students first to get over those initial barriers of resistance to sparring?
Well, again, like you said, and like Mandala Patch said, it's scary. I've had students and also people that when you introduce the school or you talk about the school or you talk about Kali or FMA. And it's like, oh, what's FMA? Oh, yeah, we deal with, a lot of weapons, swords, sticks, knives. And a lot of people, they get very standoffish, They're like, oh, when am I going to be walking around with a stick? When am I going to be walking around with a sword or a knife? Right. When am I going to use that? And then, they also say, doesn't that hurt? Or, that's a little bit scary kind of thing. So already, before you even get them to explore the technique, or even before you get them to come into class, they're already afraid. So, when I have my students and I say, okay, we're going to spar, in fact, like this month, I told everyone we're going to do double stick sparring. And, double stick sparring is a whole nother different kind of mechanic of sparring aside from just one hand. And you see the eyes of the students. They're like, oh, my God, dude, we're going to do a fight with double sticks, double the pain, hitting me twice kind of thing. But again, now there's a blueprint. I like to use the word blueprint. There's these little steps. You don't want to get hit, use your footwork. Everyone jokes around about like, I do martial arts, I know Run Fu, and I know how to get away. Yeah, that's completely correct. Get away. Use your footwork. If your footwork can get you away, your footwork could also get you to the target. So you take these little steps of breaking down a sparring session. Footwork. Then you say, okay, what's the first thing that comes through within your area? Is he coming through with his head first? Is he coming through with his shoulder first, or is he coming through with his hands first? or his weapon first, his hands or his weapon. Okay, targets, hitting the hand. I remember one of my teachers said before, you can be the sniper of hitting hands if you can hit the hands. So you start breaking down all those targets, the hand, the elbow, the shoulder, you start working your way up. So the first session, okay, here's a 1 and 2 strike. I want you to use the 1 and 2 strike against this person, but your target is the hands, that first step. Okay, now we're going to go hands and elbow. Okay, hands, elbow, body, hands, elbow, body, head, hands, elbow, body, head, legs. You get close, then take them down. Apply some of those locks. You take all these little steps. Now, should we use sponge sticks? Should we use live sticks? Should we use gloves? And it all depends. If it's a complete beginner, and you want the person just to get used to footwork, okay, here's some padded stuff, and you might get hit because your footwork is all terrible, and you don't know where the hell you're going. Okay, let's take that vest off. Just have your gloves and your helmet. Okay, hit the hands. All right. All right, you're a little bit braver now. Take the gloves off. Just keep your helmet on. Save your teeth and your eyes. And then finally, okay, let's see if you have some control. I'll hit you. You hit me. This is the amount of power that you'll potentially might, as far as it goes before you get hurt and I get hurt. And you don't have any equipment anymore. So, I mean, I have students that, even, in the past that it went from the vest, take the vest off, take the gloves off, then take the helmet off. But, you go through this trial and error so you can help people start building that technique through that, through that contact, through that sparring, so that's just,
I love it.
Cool,
and it's a learning process. It's not just about beating someone up, right? So it's not about winning.
I mean, you can have a guy walk through your door and say this stuff doesn't work, and you can't get me, and you say, okay, here's a stick, and I'll have a stick, and then and it's happened in the past with almost every kind of master that's out there. They just start hitting each other. There are challenges that are still to this day. You see people walk in and like, oh, I don't believe in your sparring and all this kind of stuff. I don't believe in your technique, and it's all over the video. You'll see them hit each other like wild men. Granted, that's there. Granted, that is true. You can get hurt from a stick. But, the question that, I think now these days is, how can you, build that technique that you learned where it's just not like, hitting. I think these days, people are finding ways to really create a structure on how you can spar, share your techniques, and grow. I mean, there are cases in all schools where, if it's whatever martial arts it is, I went to a jiu-jitsu class and the guy just choked me out. I didn't know nothing. That's not fair. I went to a kickboxing class. I jumped in the ring. He just kicked me in my head. It's the same thing. You walk into a Kali class and the guy just hit me with a stick, and I'm not going to do that anymore. You don't want that to happen. You want to share what you love. You want to.
You lose students. You lose participants.
Yeah, and that can be a tragedy. And I know there's a lot of ego involved, whether we like to admit it or not, in Filipino martial arts. And so when somebody comes in with the wrong energy, you want to set that energy straight. Let's put it that way. But at the risk of potentially losing a student. So let me get this straight. Even mandalas in the PTTA, you guys don't look at people who spar with padded sticks and go, you guys are babies. There's none of that attitude, right? You guys take everything in and understand that there's a path for everybody to get to the sparring.
I think so. I believe if you see someone with padded sticks, it's still, if you find the value of the lesson there, then that's still great. You can have a padded stick, but if you're doing your combinations with a padded stick, that's still fantastic. And maybe
there's still benefits to it.
You're not harming your student. You're letting him grow or letting her grow. But if you're using padded sticks for an ego trip and you're just beating a person down, and you don't have a lesson coming through there, then that's just a waste of that's just nonsense,
Yeah.
So, but if you know
And
there's if that's a tool to the next step, then it's completely fine. You can have a vest on, you can have a heavy helmet on, you can have padded stick on, but if the lesson comes through, that's the most important thing, I believe.
yeah, and it's just about also understanding the tools that you're working with, right? Like for example, padded sticks are good for beginners and everything, but it has its limitations also, right? That we know padded sticks bend, so your timing is different compared to a live stick, right? Because when you throw in number one, the tip of that padded stick bends back, so your timing
Right.
is different. You can't do four walls or umbrellas with it, right? Because it flexes also. So it
I
has
love
its pros
I
and
love padded
cons.
sticks. I
Yeah,
mean, I give the student the padded stick. I'll have the real stick, and I'll let the student try to hit my hand, so I don't get hurt. I will be moving my stick around and like, okay, you try to hit my hand, and which will be hard. You give a
yeah,
challenge to the student to try to hit my hand, and this person doesn't, is just learning. So with that padded stick, it can hit my hand, and
Right.
I wouldn't. I can teach the next day. So,
Yeah.
but
you won't
if
be
I
pissed.
but if I if I'm using a padded stick towards a student, then that's a different way of teaching. But give your student a padded stick. You have the live stick. You come at your student. You let them move, and let your student try to strike you, and then you can see that experience kind of grow.
Right. And worth mentioning, by
I
the
agree.
way, that both the Shinkali and Hankilan camps, as part of the PTTA, you guys have a very healthy sparring curriculum. You guys get out there and do the damn thing, right? And it seems to me like a big part of having a good sparring program begins from the leadership, because everyone says, "Oh, check your ego at the door," blah blah blah. But if that's not demonstrably seen from the leadership, then it's all just blah 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 blah, right?
Yeah.
So you guys still, both of you as mandalas, still spar and still jump in there with students. Do you guys still get hit?
Of
Of
course,
course. Always. We still get hit.
you
Everybody
get
gets
hit,
hit,
you
right?
learn. I mean, I feel I don't have the right to teach anyone if I don't know how it feels. If I say, okay, this works, and I didn't even try it myself, that's just so wrong. you know. So if I was doing a technique of 1-2 or cicadas, and I did it in a sparring session, and I could say, okay, this person moved here, or he did this kind of step here. Um, you know, I experienced it, so I feel I have the knowledge to share with it. I got one for one example. You were there. Paulo was there. We were in. I think it was Sycamore. Before I went to Sycamore, everyone always asked me about that spin strike. Like, oh, that spin strike, that doesn't work. You're not going to spin. You're going to get hit in the head. And so we were there sparring, and I was like, oh, here, step here, boom, and you can do it. And it's very possible. And just that as an example, if I was able to explore it or do it, then when I come back to Japan, I was like, oh, okay, this is what maybe a person might move here. Everything's still unknown, but there's still things that you can know. You can still break down. You can still grow from. So, I mean, I think that's one of the nicest things that you guys within the Pakiti Tertiary Tactical Association, or, in general, any group, I give respects to everyone who welcomes that opportunity to grow in sparring. I mean, I don't want to say, one system is only sparring. There's a lot of systems that spar.
Of course.
And I think with every system that spars, they're all trying to explore the techniques or the lessons that they've learned. And I think that's the beautiful thing about sparring. It brings that next step in your training or in your learning. And if you wanted to carry that system on, the mistakes, the rights, the wrongs, where this technique I got hit and I tried to do that technique, or I did that technique and it worked. You have that right to share that or teach it. But if you're looking on some video and you're following a form, but you've never experienced it, then that's just a shame. It's just it's such a waste, because that technique could go so many other places. It could grow in so many directions.
Right. Patch, how do you feel when you get hit, man? I mean, by your students or by anybody?
It's a good feeling. It's something that, I missed that kind of feeling.
Really?
I remember it was Don Philip Jelena who gave this quote that I remember, that I wrote it down in my notes. I think I mentioned this to you, Paolo. Don Philip said that stick fighting or stick hickeys, getting hit, it's like your first kiss. Right? At first you're afraid to do it, but once you do it, you want to do it over and over again. Right?
Yeah, it's completely great when your student hits you. I mean, if you're an instructor that says I'll never get hit by my students, I mean, that's such a pity, because if I teach my student the combination and my student is able to hit me with the combination I taught them, then my teaching is okay.
Good.
Then I'm grateful.
Exactly.
You learned, you got it.
And the goal as instructors is to teach your students, right? So, or like my goal is for my students to become better than me, right? If it's always me winning the fights and my students are not being able to apply this and that, then I think I have failed as an instructor.
I think that's really important. I think that's really important, Patch, because what you're also doing is creating for yourself a learning environment. So, which sometimes can be difficult for instructors, right? Because we feel, sometimes it's like we know everything, but when you have students who are continually chasing your tail, and then they catch it once in a while, you create a learning environment for yourself.
And it evolves. Like if like for example, the things that we did back in 2010, and then in 2011 we did another batch of stick fighters. The things that we did in 2010 that became our favorite because it kept on working. When we got in 2011, those things were not working anymore. It was harder to apply, which means there's evolution. People are learning from the fights, and the techniques are evolving also, right? So it's just about like what Mandala E said. The keyword there was exploration. We explore new things, and we try new things, because if we kept on doing the same thing over and over again, right? If we did everything the same back in 2010 and we're still doing the exact same thing now, then I would think that we're doing something wrong, and it's not an evolving thing.
Okay, well, let me travel back in time for a little bit and pose before we go, because I know Mandela Patch, you have some limited time here. Let me pose a challenge for you guys, right? I'm going to present to you a brand new student who has amateur tennis experience. Maybe they played volleyball in high school. So somebody who's generally fit, has a good sense of timing and competition, but not within FMA. And if I gave you both 1 week, and then at the end of that week, this guy was going to fight 5 times in a PTTA Asia training conference sparring matches, how would you prepare this student with no FMA experience? They're about to fight in the PTTA. You got 1 week. All right, let's begin with you. A little bit. Let's begin with you, Sensei E. You got a week. Well, here we go. What are you going to do?
1 week, huh?
Well,
just 1 week.
I think you could teach someone sparring in a day, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
Just one.
If you took the example of a tennis person, already, I mean, you got forward, your number 1 strike, your number 2 strike, forehand, backhand. You can work off of that from a start. Okay. The tennis player already got footwork running up and down the court. So I mean, you can build a person uh, you know, I, I I don't want to say that it's impossible because it's really not. I mean, if I walk down the street and I gave someone a stick, they'll naturally just swing a 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And if you told them to focus on that 1 and 2, focus on that 1 and 2 with targets. And if you say, okay, let's look at it as a orasan, this is the 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. And I want you to hit 1 o'clock and 11 o'clock and focus on that, and focus on that moving. Focus on it moving, me coming towards you. Focus on me running away from you, me coming around your side. I mean, I think you can do it.
So how would you do it? Let's just talk about
Well,
day one.
That would be exactly it. So I would start first. Of course, movement, footwork, absolutely. After your footwork, what is your strengths within your targets? If I will pick a specific technique that they could build off, if it's a 1 and 2 strike technique, or like a 1-2 punch, as an example, your footwork, your target, take those steps, have the target move, have the target, try hit a moving target.
What's the target? Is a target a stick? Is a target a mitt? Is a target you?
Oh, that would be me.
You would be the target. So you would essentially get into a form of compartmentalized sparring immediately. So you'd say something like, okay, day one, try to hit my hand. And then you're
so
going to
one of the approaches, I guess maybe just to describe it, when you get a student for the first time who basically doesn't know anything, doesn't know your techniques, doesn't know techniques of Kali, but they know some general natural movement.
Mm-hmm.
That's you try to find that natural movement. So every instructor does this. Okay, it's not the strengths per se, like, okay, you're strong with a 1 and 2, so I'm going to build off your strengths. We already know your strengths, so we'll build off your weaknesses. We know naturally you have a 1 and 2 strike, but this is where you're weak. You're weak over here low, you're weak over here high, but your strengths are 1 and 2. I don't need to build that no more. I will keep working off your weakness. I'll move around. I'll come around this way. I'll move my hand this way. I'll make it difficult for your strengths to be executed. So, for me, what I would do when in teaching, I would never build off someone's strengths. I would build off of their weakness or make their weaknesses strong.
Interesting approach.
It's pointless to build off someone's strengths. They're already strong. What's the point?
Especially given the time frame here, you have a week.
Yeah.
You have a
so
week.
He's already strong with a 1 and 2. So, let's say you're weak on this part. So this is where I would start. This is where I would build. If your footwork is weak, I would build on that. If your blocking is weak, I would build on that. If your counter strike is weak, I would build on that. And then, then after that, we'll, hopefully all those examples of that lesson will, be executed on the day of the PTTA gatherings.
All right, Mandala Patch, you got a week with somebody who has some athletic experience, no FMA experience. They're about to jump into a PTTA sparring match. How do you build up this person?
But just to be clear, they're not required to undergo the sparring in the PTTA match if they're just 1 week old, right?
Well, no. I mean, that would never technically happen. I mean, who would jump into a PTTA match without any experience?
Yeah.
I don't know the kind of crazy that would involve.
But that's one thing.
Let's
I
talk
like.
hypothetically.
I remember the video you posted. This is not with regards to my answer now, but just to commend it, to commend you for partnering up with some of the guys in the PTTA conference who had a lesser experience in sparring, and you were feeding them with the appropriate energy, right? And that's something we want also as a learning experience. Okay? So to answer the question, if I had 1 week, I would focus on the same TRICOM principles that we have, or the PTTA principles when teaching law enforcement and military. Right, we're to focus on gross motor skills, not much on fine motor skills, because we all know that doing fine motor skills takes time to make them gross motor skills, right? So I would work on their, since he's a tennis player, I'd go for 1 and 2s, backhand forehands, like what Mandala E mentioned. Footwork, but nothing too complex. No hourglass or holy cross or something to that effect, but simple as right lead, left lead, how to get out, ranging. 1 week is hard, huh?
Yeah.
But
I would just
I would
spar them.
Mandela
I would
Pat,
just spar them the
I've
whole
seen your
entire
guys.
week
You guys are fantastic. You can do it.
for
it
sure.
actually depends on the person also, right?
Right,
So,
right,
uh,
absolutely. So much depends on that. So those are two very interesting approaches. They're not contradictory, I don't think. Say you mentioned you're gonna allow their natural strengths to shine through and build up where they might be weak. Mandela Patch says you might take those natural tendencies and expose it to this context, which would
yeah.
strengthen it appropriately. I think those are both really, really great approaches.
But
and,
you know,
and
you
maybe
see,
focus on the three ranges, right? Give them something for close range, give them something for medium range, give them something for long range, because you can't know how the other person fights, right? Your opponent, they might favor one range over the other.
but you see the example. You have two mandalas here. Same goal, two different approaches.
Yeah,
This is what, like, you know, what you have it at Pikiti University. You know, you have all these great instructors, same techniques, same lessons, and all these different approaches. I mean, that's in many ways, I think that's the beauty of it. You know, I mean,
That's the art, martial art.
yeah, there's, you know, like I was saying before, the martial arts or the FMA that we do, it's everyone's personal journey. I mean, we all find our ways to explore it or to love it or to share it, but it's still, there's still that, that's still that root of it where, I want to execute this technique. I've seen it in many different styles. We all have one strikes. We all have two strikes,
yeah.
but the combinations of getting there, that's the uniqueness, and I think that specialness to every group, every style, every school. Many people always say, "Oh, it's all the same," but we're not all the same. We have to respect that. There's different approaches.
Right.
There's different ways to get to that number one strike.
Right.
So
Small, tiny details, right? Like, for
Yeah,
example, attending
I mean, you
a
have-
Grand Tuhon seminar is the same thing. Like,
Yeah.
you might do the same thing, but you still pick up something new.
yeah.
Do you guys think so? Speaking about Sensei, you were talking about the diversity of instructors and the diversity of methods that's displayed in Pikiti University. Patch, do you think that's a good thing? Do you think it's a good thing that this learning portal incorporates so many different teaching styles, so many different approaches? Wouldn't it be better
Definitely.
to have one way that's linear across the board?
I would say that the different flavors is the best thing about it, right? Like I mentioned earlier, it's the art and the martial art, right? If everybody moved exactly the same way, everybody did exactly the same thing, it would all be like robots, right? It's like a complete photocopy of how one person moves, but everyone has their own uh, uh, strengths and weaknesses, right? I might have injuries that Mandala E might not have that same injury, right? So
Right.
we all move differently from each other, and we're all doing the same PTTA material, same Pikiti, but your Pikiti Paulo could be different from Mandala E's Pikiti, but
Right.
it's still the same fundamentals, it's still the same principles, but how you explore and show that that art is different. I call these like Lego pieces, right? We all have the same Lego pieces, but we
Right.
can create our own, like, fighter plane. You can create your own Ferrari or Porsche or whatever, but it's all made from the same blocks.
Great analogy.
I mean,
Sensei
like,
E, anything to add to that?
yeah. So, for example, like as Mandala Patch says, I am completely in agreement. Different flavors, different styles, and that's what I was so excited about in throughout the years, and I look forward to it soon again. Is those gatherings. You have Pikiti instructors all around the world, different countries. They're all learning Pikiti, learning a Sabayan, learning a Dakapi Puño, learning a Senawali, but they all find different approaches to how to execute that technique. And you all come together in the Philippines, and then you're all doing a different footwork, and I think it's fantastic because that's where the challenge is. I mean, I don't want to fight the same person like myself all the time. You want to grow, and you only grow by being exposed to all those differences. So, you'll see how Mandala Patch fights. You'll see how Mandala Patch's students fight. You'll see. I'll see how Tuan Kit's students fight. I'll see how Tuan Jared's students fight in the U.S. or in Germany. All those different experiences of how they do and execute their techniques. It's not an ego thing where, I'm going to challenge all of them. It's a learning thing. I got to see how what I'm teaching, how it rates up upon someone, how they're moving differently. I get to grow. I get to grow it to see, what I'm doing works, and we get to grow together. So to have all these different flavors at the gatherings are fantastic. And then to see it all at, sorry, it's a plug, but it's Paquita University, all those instructors and experiences that they've done to share it there. Hey, again, each time I'm always honored to be on there, and I'm always thanking Tuan Jared and Tuan Kit, for the opportunity, to share all the experiences that I've gone through, with everyone else. It is such an honor. So
to add something to that, since
please do.
I would think that's the beauty of Paquita University, right? We have the PTTA Tri-V curriculum there for everyone, right? But that's where the gabay comes in, right? You get assigned a gabay, which is one of the high rank instructors of PTTA.
It's a guide, right? A personal guide.
It's your instructor, right? Who's teaching the same material found in that Paquita University curriculum, but it has the flavor of the gabay who's teaching you, right? It's his own expression. We could all be doing Yakanwan level, right? But how Mandala Lamont teaches his Yakanwan material from Mandala Eian's Yakanwan, it's the same building blocks, it's the same Lego pieces, right? But how each of them present it is another thing, and which is also the beauty now of the live sessions that we're having. Like Mandala E, I believe, just finished his live sessions with Paquita University. So you people get to explore different instructors from different parts of the world with different PTTA, Paquita backgrounds, like teaching.
No, that's
just for an example. Again, that the most recent PTTA gathering. As you said, the guys like Mata Seguro and Jolie, how he was moving different or incorporating something. He's incorporating himself. He's incorporating his skills. You have Mandala Rob, his background, his skills. All those little bit of identities are there, and they're all coming together, and they're all being explored, and they're all growing from it, and that's incredible. I think that's where the beauty lies. As to where it was 10 years ago or 11 or 12 years ago, where that manner of thinking wasn't even there. It was just like, I don't like your face, and let's just go at it, kind of thing. But we have in history in FMA, every instructor, to this day, from now, even in the past, every teacher always said to their student, okay, go and make it your own. Go and make it your own. And, a lot of people have done that, okay, I've learned it. You told me, okay, go. Find yourself, make it your own. And you go and do it. You find the ways to make that technique work, and that's the whole beauty of it. Now the hard part is trying to remember, oh man, how you did it? What was taught to me?
That's why you film that stuff, man. No, these are absolutely brilliant point, you guys. And on that note, I think what allows for the PTTA or even Paquita University to do this is just how welcoming somebody is. I don't think the PTTA necessarily asks you to shed your prior identities and your experiences when you come into it. It's not like we say, oh, you're Balintawak or you're Kalisi Lustrissimo. Shed all of that, become homogenized within the PTTA. I think it's great
Kung
that
Fu's better than your Kung Fu.
Yeah, I think it's great that we go, hey, that experience matters,
Well, that's why I love
And bring it
your
in.
boudoir. Your boudoir there, and like I said, I'm looking forward to going come visiting you guys one day.
Oh,
Because
you
I
gotta
love
come.
that exchange. You guys have everyone from almost every different style, and you're all sharing your experiences, and you're all growing from it. I tell the students like a lot of times, like, okay, you might be from this system or that system. You might be doing Krav Maga or Jiu-Jitsu, So, yesterday you had $1 and I'll teach you this. Now you have $2. You just grow from it. You don't tell them, say, oh, okay, you come into my class and forget about what you learned.
Right.
If you learn Jiu-Jitsu and I teach you this little bit of stick grappling and you can find how this Jiu-Jitsu works in your stick grappling, fantastic. Do it, And they're like, oh, it's not Pikiti. Well, yes, it is, because, that part that I showed you is Pikiti. That part you made together is you. Completely two different scenarios,
Absolutely.
You can love what you learned. You can grow from what you learned. And then when you grow from what you learned, that is you. And, you'll take that with you forever.
Absolutely. Hey, I want to share this video just sort of as an example, because you guys know that I travel and I get exposed to different arts and I pick up parts and pieces from different arts. So there's this moment here, if you guys can see the screen. See that checking hand that I just did there?
Yep.
So for me, clearly that's Balintawak, close range, big guy. I needed to neutralize his attack to get my thrust in. That's Balintawak, right? But that's also Pikiti, is it not?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's
spotted
FMA. It's FMA completely.
What did you see? What did you see, Patch?
Spotted Daga.
In that motion, you saw Espada Daga?
Yeah.
Sensei?
If,
Sensei E?
if we're gonna go back like the wrist thing, right? There's only a few ways you could twist the wrist. So is that FMA? Is that Aikido? Is that something else?
Yes is the answer, I think. Sensei E, what do you see here?
I love the fact that Mandala Patch said it's inspired Doug. I didn't even think about that. To me, it's just all FMA. When I learned, like even in Pikiti, we start off with that one stick here, one back hand in the back. We learn this 1-2 check motion. We learn when we move our weapon away, our checking hand is there. So for me, I think it's just all FMA completely. I know it's generalizing it, but I can even say without even any style, it's natural movement. You moved your weapon, you got your hand there.
Could be boxing.
Yeah, it could be 1-2.
Jab straight.
I think sometimes when I pay homage or mention other systems, I think it takes people sometimes by surprise or in the wrong way. I don't see it as that at all. When I say, hey, that for me honors Balintawak, and I want to honor the people within Balintawak who have shared me those things. I'm not saying that Pikiti didn't teach me those things.
I think I tell my students this all the time. Any style that you learn, any martial arts you learn, it could be karate, it could be Kali, it could be Arnis, it could be kickboxing, whatever style. All styles are great. Whatever helps you become the person you need to become, whatever style helped you become that is a great style. So all martial arts are great, So to give respects to if it was Balintawak or if it was Pikiti or if it was modern Arnis, if it was modern Arnis that helped you grow into that person to find yourself, fantastic. If it was Balintawak that helped you grow, fantastic. If it was Pikiti that helped you grow, fantastic. If it was all of them, playing with all of them that helped you grow, fantastic. But all of them are great, It's just where you find yourself at the end of the day, what you love and where you'll be with it.
It's like which flavor you prefer better, right? Just like food, it's like adobo, Filipino adobo, right? Everybody cooks their adobo differently, right? You might like this adobo, not this adobo. It's the same thing.
Absolutely. I got one more for you guys before I let you guys go. This is something that let me just get rid of this. This is something that conceptually I attribute to KI.
KI.
It's a little bit choppy here. I'm not sure if you guys are seeing this. That's too. See that step back.
Yep.
You know, the lutang or the retirada.
Yeah.
And as you strike, right? Like for me, I know very little KI, but I know that's foundational in Calisi Lustrissimo, right? But does that exist in the PTTA curriculum?
Yep. And then specifically, juego todo, juego tirada.
Yeah. See, I don't even know what that is.
That one line
Or-
going down.
Or Seguidas, number 12. Or could be simple as fencing line also, with a step back fencing line.
Right.
But,
But it's okay for me to honor Calisi Lustrissimo as a Pikiti Tertian.
oh no, absolutely.
Because that's where you learned it, and that's
Exactly.
maybe you connected it to that learning
Right.
from that art.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is, again, whatever style helped you get to where you got to, absolutely
Right.
get credit to. Absolutely love it, and there's nothing wrong with it. You know, I've never studied KI. I think
Beautiful.
I think it's a fantastic
Amazing.
style. You know, but you know, if I saw that move, I can only relate it to what I know of, and that would be
Exactly,
juego todo or juego torada. You know,
You were able,
but
you were able to connect it from there. So it's like what they call this, learning it from different you're learning the same thing but from different instructors, and
Right.
for this case different backgrounds, right? It just happened to be that you understood the explanation of this guy better. That's why you were able to connect it to that one.
Right.
whatever style helps you get to where you need to get to or helps you become a better person is fantastic. You know, when you strike down like that, a lot of people will say, oh, okay, that's panabas puntadas / thrust. You know,
That's kendo too.
yeah.
Hey. There we go. So
I
this is-
get a lot of questions about kendo and kali. It's
living in Japan, right? Like that's a question that you're going to come across. The thing that's becoming difficult for me, guys, is because I've had so many different influences who, as you mentioned, Mandala Patch, teach me something, and perhaps someone else had taught that to me in the past, but it only connected now, and so my mind is like, oh, this must be, and I forget parts of this journey where somebody might have taught me something, and because I see all of you guys as a stream, a continuation of my learning. And so, Sensei, you taught me a lot of things in the Philippines. Same with you, Mandala Patch. And then I may relearn those things or one of those things from someone else. And I hope, what I hope is that people don't get offended, you know, when I say, oh, I learned this from Tuhan Philip. And then somebody who taught me 2 years ago be like, what the hell is Paulo talking about, man? Like, I showed him that like 4 years before. And it's because I see FMA in some regard as one thing, and I see all of my teachers as one teacher. There's still ego, in FMA, and there are still feelings that can be hurt, and there can still be sensibilities that maybe touch the wrong way. How do you guys deal with that? Because you guys have been teaching this for a while, right? How do you guys see this? How do you deal with the idea that a student can have more than one teacher?
It's fine. Anything that helps you grow is okay.
Yeah. I don't have all the answers, right?
Yeah.
You have to get some of those answers from somebody else.
Yeah. I mean, like, again, you know, you'll see a student that's like, oh, Sensei, what if I go to this and learn this style? Whatever helps you become better to what you like is completely okay. You know, I mean, you only get you're honored enough to share what you know, which is great. You know, and then even myself. I mean, one of the wonderful things, though, I'm even teaching. You know, you get all these different Tuhans. I've gotten asked many times in the past. You know, like, oh, Shikali, you have this two on 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 all in Japan. Why is that? And I mean, we're just like, I'm just like any of the other students. You want to learn. So to learn, all those different experiences and different journeys is completely okay. If someone says, I want to learn modern Arnis, cool. If it's, I want to learn, Illustrissimo, great, but if you could come together and still talk about it and still share it, I think that's where the importance lies. But not when it's a pissing contest, then that's when it just ruins it for everyone.
Yeah.
Like, my stick is longer than your stick.
Yeah, Filipino martial arts shouldn't be comparing stick lengths. I'm just joking. Hey guys, I just want to say thank you very much for your time. I know this happened out of the blue. I want to plug that I'm going to be doing a full podcast with Sensei E on the Pikiti Tertia Tactical Association.
I thought this was it already.
No. We're going to talk about, more specifics, more about your processes and methodologies. This was the teaser.
So
but we're gonna do one, and it's going to be on the Pikiti Tertia Tactical Association YouTube channel and Facebook page. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. Any parting words, any last words for audience? By the way, audience, show your appreciation. Yeah, I mean, these guys took time out of their day. I don't even know what time. What time is it in Japan and in the Philippines right now?
It's about 12 midnight here.
I'm just an hour ahead of that, so it's about 1. So
all right, guys. Wow. Thank you guys for your time. Sensei E. Any last words here?
Thank you, Brother Paulo and Mandala Patch. It was wonderful seeing you guys. I definitely look forward to seeing you guys again soon. This pandemic simply sucks, and I wish everyone's safe and and be well. Hopefully, get to see Tuan and everyone and and be together and again grow together and be able to share. So I look forward to that for sure. And thank you for having me on that upcoming future podcast. I look forward to that too. So, if you please feel free to ask any questions. If you want to get to know me a little bit more. I don't know if many people know me or not, but either way, I'm happy to introduce myself. So, thank you, everyone.
Right on, Sensei. We'll see you later. Okay, I'm gonna take you off the podcast right now.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good sleep. Mandala Patch, we'll leave it to you. Any final parting words?
Yeah, just thank you for having me also for this podcast.
Of course.
I think this is the first ever podcast that I'm in, and
I ambushed you.
I don't know how you did it and you were able to get to here, but
I ambushed you.
Pandemic, like what Eian said, we're all stuck doing things that we didn't even think that we would do before, right? Doing all these online things, but good that we have Pikiti University to help us grow through this tough times. But yeah, we hope to see everyone. I hope to see you again in the Philippines camp, or maybe we could do a Japan camp sometime.
That would be amazing, man. That would be amazing.
So that's something that we've never done before, but something that we could do. So yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.
All right, Mandela Patch, thank you for your time. Guys, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Now that they're gone, I want to say these two guys are absolutely incredible instructors. And they teach in very different ways. But for me, somebody who sees all of FMA as one FMA and seeing all of my teachers as one teacher, even though they teach in very different ways, it is congruent. I've had moments with Sensei E in the Philippines where, I wanted to learn something from him and he wanted to teach me a lesson. So, okay, we set some time apart. I set my camera down as I always do, and half expecting things to have some sort of a progression. The guy just starts hitting me with a stick in a way that he knows that I can receive. And then the lesson just started from there. It started, and I'm like, what do you want me to do? He's like, what do you want to do? Right. So, but both of these guys and Mandala Patch with his knife flows and the strength of his impact in close range with knife, It's really, really something to be experienced. So I highly recommend, if you guys can find them on Facebook, go send friend requests. Definitely the website is there if you want to learn more about them. They're in the Philippines, they're in Japan. Fantastic, fantastic teachers who, based on this interview, you know, they're going to craft a teaching style that is true to who they are, but is also going to honor who you are as a student. I think that's very, very important, especially when you're studying something like the Filipino martial arts, where you don't want to lose yourself in the pursuit of studying this art form. You want to find yourself. And so with that, man, thank you guys again for joining me here on FMA Source. Community continues to grow. The community philosophy continues to flourish, that we are all in this together. And both of these guys mentioned COVID-19 as, you know, obviously this is a terrible thing that's happened to us collectively, but there are really some positive byproducts of this pandemic that we should be paying attention to. And one of those things, one small positive, right, if I can be selfish for a second, is that we are seeing more collaboration within the Filipino martial arts community. We are seeing people be willing to transform how they've traditionally taught the art and transitioning it into, you know, an online platform, which isn't the best way to learn the Filipino martial arts, but it's a way for us to continue to be together. So listen, if you see a Zoom class out there being pushed by Sensei E, Mandala Patch, both Mandalas, by the way, Tuhan, Jack Latour, from any style, anyone, go support them, take a lesson, study how they teach, which is really, really important, and be one with the community. So guys, with that, thank you so much for joining. If you're joining me on Facebook, if you wouldn't mind just for a second hopping on to YouTube and hitting that subscribe button on FMA Source, it'll just help YouTube algorithms know that we are Filipino martial artists here, and they will serve this content to more Filipino martial artists out there. It's really a small favor. Hit that like button, subscribe if I've earned it. And really, thank you very much. That's been another episode of the FMA Dumpster Fire podcast on FMA Source. My name is Paulo Rubio, aka GN. Stay blessed, everybody. Peace out.
Get the fuck out of bed, bitch. Go.
You're finished! Stop!
Get up and never got no Gotta wake up, bitch. Get up.